Welcome to AI ConvoCast, where we bring you the latest in AI and tech innovation. Quick housekeeping. Check out the affiliate links in our description. Using them supports the show, and please don't forget to rate, review, and share if you like what you hear. Let's jump right in.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into something really critical happening right now in AI governance. There's this growing tension. You've got states like New York stepping up, making their own rules for AI. And then on the other side, you have Congress looking at hitting the brakes, potentially freezing all state action for like 10 years. It's this classic state versus federal dynamic. But the stakes, they involve the future of AI, safety, innovation, everything.
Exactly. And what we want to do in this deep dive is really unpack that. We'll look closely at New York's new RAISE Act that's responsible artificial intelligence, safety, and education. And we'll contrast that with this proposed federal moratorium. It's a fascinating clash, you know. How do you balance moving fast with making sure things are safe? And how this plays out could seriously impact AI development in the U.S., maybe even our competitiveness globally.
Okay, so let's start with New York. Big news there. The RAISE Act passed June 13th, 2025. What makes this such a big deal? Why is it being called America's first real transparency standard for these top AI labs?
Well, it is a landmark move. New York is basically saying we need rules for the most powerful AI systems. We're talking about developers spending over $100 million on the computing power needed for these frontier models. That's the threshold. And the vote wasn't even close, 58-1 in the state Senate. That shows real urgency.
$100 million. Okay. So what does the act actually demand from these companies? What do these transparency standards mean in practice?
It means they have to publish safety plans, how they're handling risks. They also need independent third-party audits, that's key, plus reporting major security incidents. The aim is pretty stark. Prevent really severe outcomes. We're talking scenarios causing over 100 deaths or $1 billion in damage. Catastrophic stuff.
Now, some listeners might remember California tried something, SB 1047, but it didn't pass. How is this New York law different?
Yeah, good point. The RAISE Act steers clear of some of the more controversial bits. No mandatory kill switches, for instance. And it doesn't put legal blame for harm on the people who fine-tune the models later, the post-trainers. It's more focused on upfront safety and transparency during development.
Okay, focusing upstream makes sense, maybe easier to pass. But does that leave a potential gap later on?
That's the debate, isn't it? Relying on self-reporting and audits. Well, their effectiveness depends on how rigorous they actually are. But, and this is important, the act includes whistleblower protections. So employees can flag dangerous stuff without, fearing for their jobs. It's an attempt at internal accountability, which is pretty smart given how complex this tech is. Maybe a more pragmatic approach.
And there seemed to be this real sense of urgency driving New York. What are the key figures saying?
You hear it loud and clear. State Senator Andrew Gurnard said, basically, the window for guardrails is closing fast because the tech is evolving so rapidly. He even mentioned that the experts, the people who really know AI, think the risks are, quote, incredibly likely. And Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie called it common sense laws need to adapt as tech advances, especially with AI's capabilities.
It's not just politicians either, right? Some heavy hitters in the AI field itself are backing this.
Absolutely. You've got Geoffrey Hinton, often called the godfather of AI, and Yoshua Bengio, another pioneer, both Nobel laureates. Their support is significant. It shows that these safety concerns aren't just coming from regulators, but from people who deeply understand the technology's potential and its risks.
Okay, so that's New York forging ahead. But then there's this contrasting move at the federal level. Tell us about this proposed moratorium.
Right. So House Republicans have put forward this idea, a 10-year ban on any state or local AI regulations. It's part of a budget bill proposal. The language is explicit. No state or political subdivision thereof may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence for that decade. It would completely freeze state action, effectively saying this is federal territory only.
And the argument for doing that? What's the reasoning?
The main argument is about avoiding a patchwork of different state laws. Proponents say 50 different rule books would stifle innovation, create huge compliance headaches for companies, especially smaller ones. They argue a single national standard is needed for the U.S. to stay competitive and for AI development to proceed smoothly. Less friction, faster progress, that's the idea.
Makes sense from a business perspective, perhaps.
Yeah.
But what's the counter-argument? Who's pushing back?
Oh, there's strong opposition. Representative Jan Schakowsky called it a giant gift to big tech. Her argument, and others share it, is that a freeze would let companies ignore privacy, allow deepfakes to spread unchecked, and enable deceptive uses of AI without consequence. It basically puts public safety potentially on the back burner, prioritizing innovation speed above all else, according to critics.
And how is the industry itself, and maybe even other states, reacting to all this? It sounds complicated.
It is. You have some in Silicon Valley, like Anjani Mita from Andreessen Horowitz, strongly against state rules, saying it hurts U.S. competitiveness. That fits the patchwork concern. But then, look at Colorado. Governor Jared Polis signed his state's AI law, yet he's also said he could tentatively support federal preemption if it leads to a strong, unified national standard. So even states acting on their own see the appeal of consistency, but not at the cost of having weak or no rules.
So where does this leave us? This push and pull between state action and potential federal override seems like a really critical moment for AI governance in the U.S.
Absolutely pivotal. New York's RAISE Act, with its focus on transparency and reporting rather than strict operational limits, might become a model. It could be seen as a middle ground addressing safety without being overly burdensome. Other states might find that appealing.
But if the federal moratorium happens, it prevents the patchwork? Yes. But what's the potential downside?
The big risk is creating a regulatory vacuum. If the feds block state action but then take years to create their own comprehensive rules, or if those rules are weak, we could have a decade with very little oversight for a technology that's advancing incredibly fast. So for you listening, the question becomes, is avoiding regulatory differences worth that risk of a potential free-for-all? It's a huge trade-off.
It really boils down to fundamental questions about how we want to govern AI. Who decides? And how do we balance that need for innovation with the absolute necessity of safety?
Precisely. Maybe the resolution is some kind of compromise. Federal minimum standards, perhaps, setting a baseline across the country, but still allowing states some flexibility to address specific local issues, or maybe even go further if they choose, a layered approach. How this gets resolved will shape AI development here and our place in the global AI picture for a long time to come.
Okay, so to quickly recap this deep dive, New York is pushing forward with the RAISE Act, mandating transparency and safety audits for major AI developers. Meanwhile, Congress is debating a potential 10-year freeze on all such state-level efforts.
It's a critical moment highlighting two very different paths forward for regulating AI in the United States.
As we finish up, what should you, our listeners, be watching for next? Governor Hochul's decision in New York seems key. Will she sign the RAISE Act?
Definitely watch that. And, of course, track the progress of that federal moratorium proposal. Will it actually gain traction in Congress? Also, keep an eye on other states. Will they follow New York, wait for the feds, or try something else? And how will the AI companies themselves navigate this? Their actions and lobbying efforts will tell us a lot. This is really the next chapter unfolding in how we develop, use, and ultimately trust artificial intelligence.
Thank you for listening to AI Convo Cast. Please don't forget to rate, review, and share if you like what you hear. Thanks and hope to see you again next time.